Thank you. And I recognize Councilor Jupiterville for our prayer and our pledge today.
Okay, here we go. We pray that the coronavirus that has affected so many citizens of the Commonwealth and people on the earth can be contained, controlled, and cured. We lift up to your mercy all those affected, all those working hard to study and cure this illness, and all the healthcare professionals, emergency workers, the governor and lieutenant governor and their staff, all working day and night to keep us safe. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Jupiterville.
You're welcome.
I recognize Councilor Farrell for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
So, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I recognize Councilor DePaulo for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries, public, and justices of the peace.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Regarding this next item, relative to the appointment of Sergio, understand that hearing from some of you that we'd like to proceed with considering this motion of appointment, and there are others who want to continue the matter for further hearing. So there's going to be a discussion about that, and we'll begin with Councilor Devaney.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
We have before us as the next item, a motion to record the advice and consent for the appointment of Sergio Carvajal. There's been information that suggests.
Everyone here received a letter. You did. Ross and the governor, everyone got the letter. And this is the most unusual situation that has ever happened. And unfortunately, there's no backup for it. But the process has always been the district counselor sets the hearing, not a vote of the council. And whoever does it, then that's the day it's going to be. Well, what happened was we have it sent out to the public now. And the last few minutes were cut off unintentionally. 600 people, over 600 people saw it. And they are asking for just the end of it, because I think we ended about 6:15. So being the chair, I respect the position of being the facilitator. I speak last. So they want to hear from the chair. They want to hear my questioning, and they want to hear how I concluded what happens next. When does the council vote? All of that. So none of that was, and those people don't know the procedure. So with all the letters and the calls I got, I thought, I'm not representing myself. I'm representing the people. And they didn't hear the whole hearing. I'm not asking for the whole complete hearing. I'm just asking for the conclusion from 5:30 to might only be 10 minutes. So I called Sergio Carvajal, and I was going to make it a week ago. I've been trying to get this on the agenda for 2 months. Every time I do, another council put something on that day. This needs its own day. One time, there were 2 councils that jumped in on my day. So I would have had this long ago. I want it over. So what I want to do is that I have publicly announced it. And so Sergio said to me, I can't make it for 3 weeks. I said, okay, I'll make it 3 weeks. So 3 weeks was yesterday, was on a Sunday, the 22nd. So I made the hearing the 23rd. It's out in the public. It's on our website, public website. Everyone out there knows, every council was notified that that's what it is. And we'll vote Wednesday. We'll vote next Wednesday. No one wants this over more than I do, but we serve the public. That's who voted for us. And if the council votes today, the people will be contacting the councils and saying, what happened? What happened? You have a public hearing. We all were ready to hear it, the public hearing, and you voted without the public, without the right to know. personally, I wasn't able, they weren't able to hear me, so I feel like I'm left out. So I don't understand why it's on the agenda, because it isn't something that I try to do without anyone knowing, without the nominee, without the governor and everybody knowing. And I'm very hurt by this, that I see it on the agenda, because it shouldn't. It'll be over. Next Wednesday, we will vote. And I don't see why the district council can't be respected. I would respect any district council. They have that right, because there's no process where everybody votes.
Okay.
Okay?
Is
So
there-
what I'm saying is that if we could have the vote next week, that's what I'm asking, to delay the vote till next week. That's public out there. Everyone knows there's going to be a hearing, very short hearing. It's only going to be the end of the hearing.
Okay.
So I didn't mean to go on to it. I'm really not up to going on with it. So that's all. I just was very surprised it was on today. So all I'm asking is if we can go forward with the public's knowledge that there is a short hearing on Monday and we vote next Wednesday. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council? The hearing process is yours. Councilor Drivenville and then Councilor Hurley.
Oh, Council-
Councilor Hurley.
The fact of the matter is that the entire hearing was held. It was gavelled closed. And this would be a dangerous precedent to set. Because if she can do that, then I want to reopen the hearing that I had for somebody on the parole board to provide additional information. The hearing was held, and it was basically the fault of the electronics, for some reason shutting down. It went on till 6 o'clock, and we didn't have anybody here to fix it. It was the kind of thing, if you want the people to know what you said and what questions you asked and what you might have said at the time, you can write it out like you write out everything else and send it out or publish it publicly. But this hearing has gone on since June? I think it was June,
Not my
And then-
fault.
July. It's now the middle of August, almost the end of August. We were told that we were not having a meeting for an assembly for next week. And I, for one, made other plans based on my reliance upon that. And I think that this nominee has been thoroughly, totally, and completely vetted. And I, for one, want the vote to go forward. My vote is not going to change whether it's held today or whenever, but I'm not going to be here next week, and that forecloses me from being able to vote on it.
Let's go.
Oh, go ahead.
We'll go around this
Okay.
way. Okay. Councilor Duff.
Oh, I concur with Council Hurley. I mean, for one thing, thank you. Council Devaney started the hearing late in the day, allowed 3 hours of people to testify, and all the time knowing what the time was. You could have continued the hearing to the next week if you wanted to. I think your opinion on this man is very clear that you don't like him or support him. So I don't
I
know,
object.
excuse
I
me,
object.
excuse
I
me,
object.
I'm
I
speaking.
object.
I am
Councilor
speaking.
Devaney, let
So I
Councilor
don't
Duff
think there's any new information that's going to come, but perhaps you've changed your mind because maybe you've done some due diligence. But the fact being, it sets a terrible, terrible precedent, as Council Hurley said. And frankly, I dealt with a housing court issue this morning, and we need people in these courts. I don't think this is going to change anybody's vote whatsoever. Our staff doesn't even get to take a lunch break on Wednesdays. So to be asking them to stay to showboat, I think is outrageous. That's all I have to say. I'd like to do the vote today. I don't think it's going to make any bit of difference in anybody's vote. I concur, Councilor Devaney, full total respect to you. If you would like to issue a statement and say what you already have said, go ahead and do it. I mean, I think that's fine. But I won't be here next week either. So if she's going to hold a hearing, which she already gavelled shut and there's no renomination. So legally, I don't even know how you can do that. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think there's any I don't think there's any precedent for that. But then we're going to have to wait until we can gather again because most of us won't be here next week for that. So, and I will not attend another hearing because in my opinion, it's a waste of public time and resources. We don't have time to waste in the housing court right now.
Council
I
Kennedy.
just want to say that I'm not available for the next 2 weeks, and based on what I was told we were going to do for assemblies, and this has been around since June, so I think we should go forward today. I'm not available next week or the week after at all.
Okay, Council Kennedy. Councilor Ianella.
Thank you very much. I have to respectfully disagree with my friend Councilor Hurley, as well as Councilor Duff. This is not, first of all, we already have a precedent. We have a precedent. I continued a hearing. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Speaking.
Councilor Kennedy, I believe, was the Superior Court nominee. I think we continued that 2 or 3 times, Mr. Wall. So we have continued hearing. I mean, whether it's the gavel is closed or whatever, and you mentioned the parole board. We already voted on the parole board. If we hadn't voted on the parole board or anyone else and somebody wanted a hearing, the counselor from the district, I'd be more than happy every single time to grant that person a continuance. Obviously, if they abused it and had a continuance and a continuance and a continuance, I wouldn't do it. It's funny when we talk about continuances, you folks all know I'm the big continuance guy when we talk to judges all the time. I know those other counselors always support me. Yeah, you're right. Judges should continue. And there are counselors here, some of my best friends here will say, Judge, I don't understand. Is it that important? Why does the case have to go forward? Why can't we continue it? Counselor Devaney wants a continuance. 1 week. This nominee, this housing court vacancy was vacant, with all due respect to the Lieutenant Governor, for 6 months. I didn't hear anyone here, including myself. I didn't hear anyone complaining week after week after week. Everyone was silent. Nobody complained. When are we going to fill that housing court nomination? When are we going to fill it? Nobody said anything. Not one of you, including me. Nobody said, excuse me. Nobody said a thing. So another week, is it that important? Is it that important? The nominee has already been notified. The public has been notified. Probably everyone here knows how they're going to vote. But I think for the respect for a fellow counselor in that person's district, we owe it to that person and we should continue it. That's my opinion.
Councilor.
I see it this way. The Supreme Judicial Court, in a case that the council brought to the court, said, we act as a body. We don't act alone. In order to bring a case to the Supreme Court, we have to have all 8 counselors signed onto it. We can't do it 1 counselor or 4 counselors. We have to do it in unity. So in this particular matter, has been stated, this got continued. Councilor Devaney wanted to continue it, and we voted to support her on that, and we continued it to get further facts in this case. We had the hearing. It went on for a long time. There's no question the home counselor has a right to set the date and the hearing time, but we do it here. We do it here. And everybody agrees to it here in open. So we had that hearing. It was closed. Councilor Devaney called me right away and talked to me about it. I said, I don't agree with it. I don't believe you can do that on your own, and I'm not going to be present at the hearing unless the entire council or a majority of them vote for that. But you got to bring it up. You can't just say, I'm going to set a hearing date, one person. What's going to happen when that hearing date comes? I'm not going to be here for it, and I doubt anybody else is. So now the public is going to see that. And number 2, I don't even know whether the nominee is going to come. If I was him, I wouldn't. What's the point of it? I mean, he took a pretty good beating when he was here for quite a while. So There's no question a counselor can set the date, but if you're gonna have another hearing, which this is, then bring it before the counselors, or call all of them and get 5 people to agree to it. That, I don't know whether that's happened. I don't know what anybody else did if they were contacted. But I just don't believe one person can say, oh, by the way, that hearing I had a week or 2 ago, I forgot to do something and I'm only going to need 10 minutes, so I'm going to bring it back and set another date. I don't agree we should do things that way. It should be done with all of the counselors or a majority of them agreeing to it before it's posted, before people are contacted. I don't think that was done in this case. So I'm voting to have the vote today. The guy's been waiting long enough for an answer, and now's the time to do it.
Let me just go back around here. Counselor DiPaolo.
Thank you. Just rather than restate anything, I think Counselor Ianella raises good points. I think all the counselors raise good points. In this particular case, as a case-by-case basis, I don't see the problem with continuing and having a vote 2 to 3 weeks from now. If it continues again, maybe I would feel differently, but I'm fine with going forward with the Counselor Devaney's hearing.
Take a vote. Move for.
Lieutenant Governor, I just wanted to say that, first of all, the procedure is we make the date of the hearing here. But that has gone awry, and people call on a Friday to make it on a Wednesday and every other thing. What happened was, when I got all of these calls from people, they wanted to know, I wasn't asking, I would have this hearing Monday, and people who have already spoken are done. People have heard them. So I'm just concluding that hearing. This is something that would never happen in a million years, and it has. And it's just being respectful to a district counselor to do that. And so I contacted Sergio Carvajal, and I want to make it the next week. He said, I can't make it. And so I said, well, I know you can't have cases now that you're, going to be a judge. And he said, I can't make it for 3 weeks. So I counted the 3 weeks
You've stated
and I
this.
made it the next day. And so I did anything that was proper. When a district council sets a hearing, the council doesn't take a vote. They might disagree that they don't want time, or I have, but it's never a vote. It's the district council that has it. Now, I did not want this delayed, but councils kept on putting it on the same day I had, 2 and 1 and every other thing. And that's what it is. Yes, I asked the governor to withdraw his nomination because of all the calls I was getting. And also the prosecutor, fraud prosecutor of the United States of America, Interpol, for all the big corporations that she's taken on in Little Massachusetts, asked the governor to remove him. I know, I'm not changing votes. I know where the votes are. I'm not changing any votes. I'm just saying, I just want to respect the people of Massachusetts that voted each of us to conclude the hearing.
Okay.
And only the people who haven't spoken, who are at that hearing will speak, and that's all. So it's going to be very brief. So we don't require a quorum. So I'm just asking, I don't want this to be a debate, please. I'm just trying to say that
Everybody's been
I'm
heard.
just honoring, and I'm honoring this man to give him the 3 weeks he asked. I didn't want to prolong it anymore.
Counselor.
And I thought, well, I'll have it Monday. We'll vote next Wednesday.
Everyone's been heard on this.
Thank
matter.
you.
Okay.
I move for a vote on the vote.
Second,
There's a,
move to have the vote today. I second that.
there's a motion.
Excuse me, when did we
No.
ever have a vote, Lieutenant Governor, on a continuance? Never
This
went to
isn't
the
a
council.
continuance, it's a
This
new
is-
hearing.
No.
The hearing process is yours. There's a motion. There is a second.
Is there a motion to what? For the vote on the continuance, right?
No,
No.
there is a motion before this council that has been seconded.
To move the vote.
Proceed with the
Vote
vote
today.
relative to the
I
nomination.
thought it was a vote to continue.
No,
Continuance.
No.
It'd be a brand
There, no, there is a motion. You can vote
Eileen.
in favor or against.
Without due
We have
respect,
to, no, the motion before the council that has to be acted on because it has been moved and seconded is a motion to proceed with the vote relative to the nomination of Sergio.
So that motion would go forward even if 6 out of 7 here would, said they wanted to change it.
No, whatever the outcome of your vote.
Not
is.
voting for the nominee, Chris.
What? Oh, we're voting on the continuance.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
We're
just
voting on
language she's
the,
using.
I asked for continuance.
I'm sorry. This is,
The
Council.
motion was.
He
to
said
have
it's a
the
vote on the
today.
continuance.
So in your mind, you have to answer this question. The motion is relative to moving forward today
I got it. Sorry.
with
Same
the
thing. Okay.
vote of confirmation or not
Got it.
relative to the nomination.
Thank
of
you very
Sergio
much.
Cabal.
I'm sorry.
Does the council wish to proceed with the vote that is item 3 on the agenda for the
Got it.
council
All
today?
right, we're good.
Did we have a roll?
Just
We
a
may
point of
have a roll call.
information, so I know how I'm voting. So we're going to vote whether we could have a continuance on Monday.
No. What
We
you
go
have,
forward today.
what you have before you is whether to go forward with item number 3 on the agenda today, which is the motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Sergio Cabal.
Okay.
We may begin with the roll call.
Requested.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
There are 4 in favor of moving forward with the vote of appointment or not of Sergio Cabal,
And one
and
absent.
3
One absent.
opposed, and 1 absent. At this point, I now recognize Councilor Devaney for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment.
No,
of-
I will not make the motion. I will not make the motion
I'll make it.
Fine.
because
Second.
this is so unbelievable.
Okay, so-
It's so disrespectful to the people that we have voted to put us here.
Okay. I will now recognize Councilor Jubenville for
I
a motion.
move for the vote, the
Second.
nomination.
There's a motion and a second relative to the nomination to record advice and consent for the appointment of Sergio Cabal to the position of Associate Justice of the Housing Court. There is a motion and a second. We may begin with the roll.
Second, discussion.
Okay.
Discussion.
Councilor Devaney.
First of all, I received a lot of calls from people who feared coming to the hearing because of retaliation. I can't tell you the names. I wouldn't expose them to this. This was in the history of council, I bet there wasn't ever 7 in opposition, never. And that's why it ran so late. One of the men really touched my heart. There was an opposition. Stephen Jenkins, happened to be a black man, and he was so quiet, so kind, he was so civil, and he was going to have his house foreclosed, and he came in opposition to the nominee, Sergio Carvajal. He talked about adopting his son, and his son said, if this happens, where do we live? Where do I go to school? And all of them that spoke talked about things that were happening. What was really egregious was that he sent, Mr. Carvajal sent an email to one of the women who he had been harassing and meeting her out in the hallway and telling her, don't go to the jury, you'll lose. And anyway, in that email, he quoted a Mass General law telling her that Mass General law requires her to pay his attorney fees, and he wanted it, I think it was that night. I looked up that chapter. Doesn't apply to this lady. You know why? Because she doesn't have an attorney. That chapter only requires someone who has an attorney to pay those attorney fees. This man has lied, he's hurt people. And 2 days after this hearing on a Wednesday, Stephen Jenkins got a notice. He and his son will be out of the house on Thursday. That's retaliation. And those are the calls that I got, these people in fear. Most of them are single women. One of them has been so distraught, she couldn't even come. This is what it's done to her. I want someone compassionate. Housing is the #1 priority in Washington, in Massachusetts, and we need judges who are fair. And my hat goes out to Mr. Jenkins and his son and all the people, but 2 days after the hearing, I'll be voting no.
Counselor Juben?
Yeah. This was a troublesome vote. I went back and forth on it for quite a while. I questioned him extensively on the council at the hearing date. First of all, I want to thank Councilor Devaney for bringing to my attention all the documents in this case given to the councilors, because anything we get on a nominee is always good to read about. So I appreciate the work she did for that. And I also want to thank Councilor Duff for explaining to me about predatory lending. I certainly knew the term, but I didn't know a lot about it until you explained it. So I thank you for that. So this nominee had, from the hearing, some witnesses here. One of them was Mr. Jenkins, a very nice fellow, no question about it, and I feel bad for him if he's been evicted. His testimony had nothing to do with the nominee. The nominee didn't represent him. The nominee had no contact with him. He spoke and we listened, but it had nothing to do with the nominee. The nominee also had nothing to do with the bank's policies and procedure with regard to loans and lending. He wasn't part of the board. He wasn't part of the decision-making. He had 2 cases with the bank. One of them was I believe the Sweeney case that we heard all about. And there was another case he had at the bank. He was hired as an independent lawyer to do a case, 2 cases for that bank. We heard from Ms. McKee, who is a very well-educated woman, very respected, and she indicated what she thought of this situation, and she pointed out a bunch of things that were informative to me. She also said that she took out a criminal complaint against the nominee. The nominee never knew about that at this hearing, and nor did anything ever come of that criminal complaint. So evidently, wherever it went, it didn't go any further. So I guess the knock on this nominee was that he had threatened, sent emails, and verbally talked to Ms. Sweeney at the courthouse. No question, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have sent that email. There's no question about it. He was wrong in the law, and he shouldn't have sent it. He admitted that to me at the hearing, and I asked him if he had it to do again, would he do it again? And he said no, he shouldn't have handled it that way. So at least he admitted to it and took responsibility for it. There was another lady who sent us some things indicating that she didn't get notified of a case that the nominee had, and she said she felt went ahead and kind of snuck into the court and did something without her knowing about it, which can happen. But usually when you go to court, just one party, a judge says, have you notified the other party? And you either have to prove you did, or you have to come back on another date. So, in mitigation for the fellow, he's had a good career as a lawyer and a lot of work in the housing courts. And I just don't think that email, first of all, I spoke to Ms. Sweeney myself on the telephone. She said he was a good lawyer. He represented his client very well. And she said she was not threatened by him. And she never took the advice he gave her. So when he said, you got to do this or you're going to pay legal fees, she didn't get involved in it. She didn't agree to it, and she didn't sign anything agreeing to it. So no harm was done with that email or the supposed threats. She didn't take it. And So I'm left with two witnesses basically that talked about him by way of a writing and by way of a third party on the Zoom. But I just don't feel that what he did was sufficient enough to say that he should be castigated for the rest of his life based on that. He made a mistake, he admitted it, and when you admit a mistake like that, in my view, you grow from it, you learn from it. And he would be a better judge, I think, by admitting to that mistake than otherwise. So for all those reasons, I am going to vote yes on this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
I just want to say
Counselor Hurley.
that Rosemary Rosario, who's the chief housing specialist in the Central Housing Court in Worcester, wrote a beautiful 3-page letter of what she was going to testify to, but she was unable to be here in person. And I would just like to say that I would like you to know that Sergio Carvajal is a person of impeccable character, and it would have been an honor for me to speak on his behalf. He will be a tremendous asset to the Housing Court as an Associate Justice because of the knowledge he possesses of housing laws and experience he brings representing both landlords and tenants. But I believe the greatest contribution to the bench Sergio will make will be due to the human characteristics that comprise his character. Characteristics of compassion and understanding that a judge needs when rendering decisions that impact people's lives. I think that the attorney who was working for Interpol might have done a great job doing that, but I certainly don't think that she has the wherewithal to interpret or suggest legal opinions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She is not a member of the bar. She's not a judge and or any other thing that gives her special knowledge or her statements more credibility. The fact of the matter is, to bring a criminal complaint was nothing more than an additional type of smear campaign as far as this person's characteristics and character. And I find that offensive. You know, if you want to take a shot at somebody, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And don't take one single thread and try to weave it into a coat or cloak of lies. I feel bad for the people who are in this position of losing their property or their apartment or whatever. And all of this has been exacerbated by COVID. But I knew of this gentleman from before because he practiced not only in Worcester, but in the Springfield area. Has a great reputation, someone who's thought of as fair and reasonable, respectful, and has the kind of character that a judge needs on the bench, especially with all of the pro se cases in the housing court. So I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Counselor Duff, and then Counselor DiPaolo.
I just also wanted to say, I wasn't going to go into this, but since Counselor Hurley brought it up, you know, I work in this business, in this housing industry, and I actually did reach out to people in the Worcester area about this. And this man has actually the complete opposite reputation of what is being painted of him, that he treats people with the ultimate respect, especially people who are doing pro se. If he encounters them, and the people in the profession have the utmost respect for him and say that he's actually one of the kindest, most fair people they've ever met. So I have to say, I have found this to be a gross character assassination of somebody, because it is incredibly tragic when somebody can no longer pay their mortgage. But when you haven't paid your mortgage, like that fellow didn't pay his loan for 10 years, at a certain point, what people don't understand, when you buy a house, unless you're paying cash, the bank owns the house. You don't own it, the bank owns it. And the bank took possession of their property. And it is a very, very sad thing. I teach first-time homebuyer classes. The reason why we encourage people to take first-time homebuyer classes is so they understand what they're doing. And when that was suggested to some of these witnesses, they found it offensive. I don't know how you can help people if they don't want to get help. But I do think that this has been a gross character assassination against a man who otherwise, I don't know him personally at all. I've only talked to people in the real estate profession, and he has a stellar reputation. And honestly, until you said this, Councilor Hurley, I wasn't going to say anything because I just think this has been one of the most gross miscarriages of justice I've seen a few in this chamber, but this one is getting up there of being a real assassination against somebody's character and accusing somebody of telling lies when they're not telling lies at all. You just don't like what the truth is.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, and we may commence the roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
You're not supposed to talk at this point, but I just want to apologize to the voters of Massachusetts that I could not have my hearing. And I will be voting no.
We have a
No.
roll call in process.
No.
Yes.
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 Wait a minute, this vote was for what?
For him to become a judge.
Okay, I got the
Confirmation.
right vote then. Okay.
All right, I recognize Counselor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Asha Z. White to the
What was the
position
vote?
of Associate Justice of the District Court.
It is with great pleasure that I make that nomination. He is an outstanding nominee. He's going to be an incredible judge.
Second.
I'm sorry, now who is this for?
Yes, this is
Asha.
a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Asha Z. White to the position of
Oh,
Associate
okay,
Justice of the District Court.
Mr. White?
There is a motion
Yeah,
and a second.
exceptional. You know, if I had one word besides his qualifications and his experience, it would be gentleman. He's really,
Was that a second?
Second.
that's a second.
Roll call.
We have a motion and a second. We may commence the roll call.
Yes.
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 I recognize Counselor Devaney for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Rachel E. Hershfang to the position of Associate Justice of the Appeals.
Just exceptional. She has experience in all the courts, even the federal courts. She's well-respected, got a lot of calls for her, and I was very honored to be able to preside over a hearing.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I make the motion.
Second.
There's a second. We may begin the roll call.
Melon?
Would you like to vote in favor of?
Marilyn.
It's a roll call. You begin the roll
Yes.
call.
Yes.
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 That is 7-0. Yes. I recognize Counselor Ianella for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of William G. Farrell to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
Thank you. I make that motion. Outstanding, great appointment.
Second with
Second.
pleasure.
There's a motion and a
Second,
second.
and,
Counselor Devaney.
Just exceptional. In 21 years, I mean, I've never seen a resume like his. He has been a mentor to everyone. He has even trained Sharon Casey, who was a former deputy counsel for the governor in Cambridge, and she told us at her hearing she has never been in a courthouse. So that's due to him. I think he did a great job.
That's not true.
The other thing,
That is not true.
what?
You said, she said, she had never been in a courthouse. That is absolutely.
She said it
A
at the,
false
I'm sorry, I'll take it back. She said it at the hearing.
Recognized by the chair, please, first.
Uh,
before we talk.
Through the chair, it was said at her hearing. I asked her and she said it at her hearing.
Let's
I
say
would never
from
make that up. I'm just saying that this man has mentored many people, clerk magistrates and many other people. But you know what's so significant about him, besides all his qualifications, is all of the charitable things he's done. He has had fundraisers for the Richards, who we knew what happened at the Boston Marathon. Their son was killed and they're all injured. he has had fundraisers and races for disabled people, for Down syndrome people. He has been a coach. I mean, it's remarkable what he has done. You know, that he has mentored so many people and has, you know, gone out to the clerk magistrates and has literally trained them. So I'm very pleased that he applied, and I like his age. I think that we should be looking at this age to see life experience that we bring to the court, and he has it. He has it all. I can't be more enthusiastic for anyone as I am for Bill Farrell.
We have a motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree, it's an outstanding nominee, and I'm voting yes as well.
Yes.
They don't come any better than Billy Farrell. Yes.
Is he too good?
He might be.
Okay, I'm voting yes.
Your vote,
Yes.
please. Yes. That's 7-0. I recognize Counselor Devaney for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Samir Zaganjori to the position
Zaganjori.
to the position of Associate Justice of the Boston Municipal Court.
Yeah, just a wonderful, I shouldn't say young man, but he is. And I question age, but he has been in the juvenile court, the Superior Court, the District Court. I mean, he has the experience that, you know, for someone at his age that is really remarkable. And I love his compassion and his empathy, as Bill Farrell and the others that we voted for today. That's what I look for, and he has it. And you know, I was very honored to preside over his hearing, and you know, I got a lot of calls from even retired Judge Hogan. So I'm very enthusiastically making the motion for his appointment.
Is there a
Second.
second? There's a motion and a second. We may begin the roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay. That's a full day of voting. So thank you very much for your deliberations and for your presence today. That concludes our business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Good work.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you both.